Good evening, I'm Anna Azalian. Thanks for joining us. First for you tonight, we are following a developing story out of Athens. Ohio University has just moved to suspend all of its 15 fraternities. Dean of Students Jenny Hall-Jones announced the decision in a letter to all Interfraternity Council presidents. This comes after both Acacia and Alpha Epsilon Pi fraternities were given cease and desist orders. Both were due to allegations of hazing. The letter says that 5 other organizations have been accused of hazing as well. The university says the investigation into the recent accusations will take time.
So the Student Code of Conduct outlines what the investigation process looks like, and there isn't really a timeline because we need to give thorough attention to the process. So, it just depends on the number of interviews that the investigators need to do and the type of research that they need to do. So it just depends from case to case on how long it takes.
Fraternity life at Ohio University has been under increased scrutiny following the death of a Sigma Pi pledge, Colin Wyant, last year. Members of her fraternity at Miami University are facing charges after an investigation. More than a dozen former members of Miami's chapter of Delta Tau Delta are charged with hazing and assault. This comes after a student says brothers hit him with a spiked paddle and forced him to drink during initiation. Miami suspended the fraternity for 15 years in August. Delta Tau Delta's national headquarters revoked their charter in June. And almost 3 years after a shooting on Brown Avenue in Athens, a New York man is arrested. Raymond Luis Nieves of Brooklyn was arrested in Columbus, according to prosecutor Keller Blackburn. An Athens County grand jury indicted Nieves in August. Prosecutors allege Nieves shot Alex Andrews through his kitchen window in the early morning hours of January 19th, 2017. The shooting left Andrews blind in his left eye. And a state watchdog agency reports that grant funds were inadequately overseen at Ohio University. The Ohio Inspector General's office reviewed nearly $250,000 in grant funding awarded to the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation. It found that the Bureau did not adequately monitor the award and spending of the grants. The Inspector General's office made 11 recommendations on how to improve the Bureau internally. And a man has been charged for a bomb threat called into Buckeye Hills Career Center in Gallia County. Keaton Camp of Wellston has been charged with inducing panic. The school implemented its crisis management plan and moved to a safe location. First responders came to the school. They did not find a bomb and declared the attack a false alarm.
Another record breaker today, and it's still quite hot out there right now. 90 degrees in Athens. Pressure's at 29.92 inches and falling as a cold front starting to make through the viewing area. Humidity is dry at 38% and winds are out of the west-southwest at 9 miles an hour. Across the area, temperatures are still quite warm. Upper 80s and lower 90s. 86 in Columbus, 87 in Newark, 84 is the cool spot in New Lexington, 95 is the very warm spot down in Ironton, all under mainly cloudy skies. The clouds will continue to increase as that cold front comes through, and the cold front is bringing with it some showers. There's some isolated showers in Fairfield, Hocking, and into Perry counties. Those will be isolated. Not many of you will see rain as we go throughout the night, but the highlights for the next couple of days, summer is officially over. Below average for the first time in almost a month tomorrow. But in my full forecast, we'll take a look back at the record-breaking week. So looks like summer's not quite looks like summer is pretty much done as we go throughout the next couple of weeks and even months.
Glad to hear it. Thanks, Nicholas. And federal officials say drought conditions in West Virginia are worsening. Unusual high heat continues to beat down on the region. Officials say nearly 50% of the state's population is now in a drought. The National Weather Service marked last month as one of the warmest and driest Septembers on record in multiple West Virginia cities. Less than 1 inch of rain was recorded in the month. And Republican Governor Matt Bevin and Democrat challenger Andy Beshear are set to meet in a high-stakes forum in western Kentucky. The rivals will square off at Thursday's event in Paducah. The Republican incumbent and Democratic Attorney General will get a chance to confront each other on various topics such as education and health care. And Monday is the last day to register or change party affiliation in Kentucky if you plan to vote in the November 5th election. Voter registration in Kentucky has been trending toward Republicans for many years, yet Democrats still having the advantage. Kentucky exceeds the national average for registered voters. Still, about 30% of the population that's eligible remains unregistered. And Ohio has launched a study aimed at identifying the genetic markers that separate likely opioid addicts from people somehow immune. The effort announced Thursday will include a study of patient swabs collected at emergency rooms at the University of Cincinnati and Ohio State University hospitals. Republican Attorney General David Yost is leading the study. He said the effort will take about 18 months and cost $1.6 million. And a former suburban Cleveland mayor and campaign treasurer for U.S. Representative Dave Joyce has been sentenced to 30 days in jail. Cleveland.com reports Scott Coleman of Highland Heights has been sentenced Wednesday for the theft of $160,000 from the Bainbridge Township Republicans campaign. He provided a $342,000 check to repay the stolen funds and the campaign's cost for investigative fees and correcting campaign filings. An Ohio man imprisoned for a drunken driving death after confessing in a YouTube video is getting out 5 months early. Matthew Cordell of Powell was sentenced to 6 years in prison for the death, plus 6 months in jail for drunken driving. A judge in Columbus on Wednesday granted his request to suspend the rest of his sentence. Citing his exemplary prison record and education, he pursued to make good on a pledge to become an advocate against driving under the influence. Cordell's attorney argued probation allows him to start fulfilling that pledge, but the daughter of the man Cordell killed opposed his release. An Ohio mom has a unique approach to try and get drivers to slow down in her neighborhood. That plan, dress like a unicorn. She has been donning a unicorn costume and holding a sign urging drivers to slow down near her children's bus stop in Centerville. The speed limit is 25 miles an hour, but she says many drivers break it. She also says her campaign has been getting good vibes from kids and other parents.
It's been pretty amazing. All the kids on the buses and all the kids going to and from school, they wave every single morning and get all excited. A lot of moms who have dealt with the same problems on their streets honk and wave if they get stopped on the street. They're like, "We support you."
But police are less excited about her campaign. They say her dancing and her costume can distract drivers. And a top Democratic health candidate suspends their campaign due to health problems. And President Trump speaks out about Joe Biden and Ukraine. These stories and more when Newswatch returns.
Whether by land, by air, or by sewer, these modern migrators are joining the daily commute
Please mind the gap.
in and out of our cities. And while they face unfamiliar dangers, the rewards can be worth it. With one paw in the wild and one hoof in the city, these clever commuters are making the best of life in the wild metropolis. Only on PBS.
The Philippine leader has faced harsh criticism for launching a bloody drug war. Thousands of people have been killed in the brutal crackdown.
My campaign against drugs will not stop until the last pusher and the last drug lord are
The most dramatic moment of learning in my life happened in less than a second.
50 years ago, 5 scientists made a revolutionary discovery.
It was a flashbulb moment.
They learned how to heal a battered planet.
We've found the rules, how systems work, how the world works.
Join these unsung heroes as they tell their unique story of hope, one that will change the way you see nature.
The end end of dinosaurs.
It's the most important event in the last 100 million years.
Now, an extraordinary expedition.
At ground zero, investigating how this impact led to such mass extinction,
reveals an unimaginable global chain reaction.
The atmosphere was emitting energy larger than the sun. They were toast.
And its aftermath.
It's important to look at what survived.
The Day the Dinosaurs Died on Nova.
President Donald Trump, who is facing an impeachment probe for asking a foreign government to investigate a fellow 2020 candidate, did just that. On live TV Thursday, Trump asked both China and Ukraine to investigate former Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter, confirming what's in a whistleblower complaint.
China should start an investigation into the Bidens, because what happened in China is just about as bad as what happened with Ukraine. So I would say that President Zelensky, if it were me, I would recommend that they start an investigation into the Bidens, because nobody has any doubt that they weren't crooked. That was a crooked deal, 100%.
There is no evidence of wrongdoing by either Joe or Hunter Biden. And Senator Bernie Sanders has suspended his presidential campaign after a sudden health scare has him recovering from a last-minute heart procedure. Reed Binion has the latest.
Senator Sanders is a fighter. He's a trooper. And, it's not going to surprise me at all when he's back on the campaign trail.
Well wishes pouring in for Senator Bernie Sanders. His fellow Democratic presidential hopefuls taking to Twitter to express their love and support after Sanders experienced chest discomfort during a campaign event in Las Vegas Tuesday.
Give me a chair up here for a moment. I'm going to sit down here. It's been a long day here.
Sanders' campaign put out a statement saying, quote, he was found to have blockage in one artery and 2 stents were successfully inserted. Senator Sanders is conversing and in good spirits. He will be resting up over the next few days. We are canceling his events and appearances until further notice.
We're thinking of him and wishing him a very speedy recovery.
Even from his hospital bed, Sanders took to Twitter to continue his campaign and thank everyone for their support, saying, quote, I'm feeling good. I'm fortunate to have good health care and great doctors and nurses helping me recover. None of us know when a medical emergency might affect us, and no one should fear going bankrupt if it occurs. Medicare for all.
I don't care what your background is, who you support. All Americans should be wishing him well right now.
I'm Reed Binion reporting.
And talks between the U.S. and North Korea will resume tomorrow in Stockholm. That's according to a source who has knowledge on the situation. It's not known if Trump or Kim will be directly involved in the new round of talks, but President Trump and his North Korean counterpart Kim Jong-un have met 3 times. Their denuclearization talks fell apart in June during the G20 summit in Japan. North Korea has halted its test of long-range missiles, but is still testing its short-range and submarine-launched missiles. Former police officer Amber Geiger was given a 10-year prison sentence after the murder of Botham Jean. Although many are calling the sentence too lenient, Jean's father is preaching forgiveness. Jean's brother gave Geiger a hug in court and told her he forgives her. Now his father is following suit, saying that he wants to be friends with Geiger someday.
I'm not really surprised, because they know how I raised it. Fear of the Lord. And I think the Holy Spirit is working. I'd like to become a friend at some point in time. I think I have the ability to do it. I can be a friend. And I would like to be a friend despite my loss.
He was shot in his own apartment last September after Geiger said she mistook his home for hers and thought he was a burglar. And the FAFSA just opened for the next school year. That story's still ahead.
And weather-wise, it's been a record-breaking week, but fall is in the forecast and it looks like it's here to stay. I've got all the details in my full forecast coming up in the next couple of minutes, but first, a look at stocks of local interest.
Philippine leader has faced harsh criticism for launching a bloody drug war. Thousands of people have been killed in the brutal crackdown.
My campaign against drugs will not stop until the last pusher and the last drug lord are
On Finding Your Roots, Angelica Houston,
No idea that she was living this kind of life.
Mia Farrow,
It's much worse than I thought it would be.
and Isabella Rossellini.
She always said that she didn't want to have roots.
Ancestry uncovers a painful past
I see why my father never mentioned his father now.
as DNA reveals
You want to meet this person?
a surprise.
That's hysterical.
Finding Your Roots.
Three carefree brothers drop everything to tend to their aging grandmother.
¿Cómo puedes decir que no hay conciencia?
Párate, América, párate, por favor.
Discover the joy and sacrifice of being there till the end. America on POV.
I loved Ken Burns' series on the Civil War. It was deeply impacting. I love history. To have those stories told through these letters, through stories of love and loss, it rewrote the book on how to tell a story. When television was invented, there were a lot of people who had dreams about what it could do. I think PBS still aspires for and often succeeds at reaching the highest ideals of what television could be.
Can social media's grip on us today be explained by psychological experiments from the 1950s? How protests by black athletes today are connected to those of the past.
There's no such thing as staying in your own lane in sport.
Plus, humorous Andy Borowitz. Those stories and more. Retro Report on PBS.
What's up, everyone? My name is Joseph Hennessy, and I'm the host of Gridiron Glory. Our shows air on Friday nights at 11:30 p.m. and on Saturdays at 11:30 a.m., so don't miss out on Southeastern Ohio football. We're going to be at Wellston, my old hometown, Washington Courthouse this week, South Gallia, Waterford, and our game of the week is at New Lexington against Tri-Valley. So follow all of our content on WOUB.org and our social media accounts. And remember, there's nothing better than Friday nights and Gridiron Glory. See you Friday.
The Philippine leader has faced harsh criticism for launching a bloody drug war. Thousands of people have been killed in the brutal crackdown.
My campaign against drugs will not stop until the last pusher and the last drug lord are
Welcome back. I'm forecaster Nicholas Snyder. Well, it was another record-breaking day today as far as heat goes. Here's a look at our visible satellite. Lots of clouds over the area right here. That's due to a cold front that's coming through, and it's really going to cool us off as we go throughout the night. Here's a look at the jet stream. Left exit region of that jet streak right here. That's where that low pressure is going to develop. Move on east and really going to cool us down, allow that cooler air from the north to come on down into the area and really cool us off. As I said earlier, there's our cold front. It's already come through actually, and as we go throughout the night, it's going to get cooler and cooler. But first, we'll take a look at this graphic. Record highs continue today. We officially broke a record of 93. That was our high Our previous record was 84, set back in 1982, and officially Athens has broken a record every day this week so far. And here's a look at that. 91 was Monday's high. That breaks a previous record of 90. Tuesday's high was 92. That breaks a previous record of 87. Wednesday's high was 92. That breaks a previous record of 84. And today's high was 93. That breaks a previous record of 84 as well. So it's been hot over the past couple of days, and that is all about to change. Look at this. Tonight, 51, partly cloudy, a chance of an early night shower. We saw those showers up to our north and west. Those may continue throughout the night, but 99.9% of you should stay dry. Winds will be out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Across the area, lows will generally be in the lower and middle 50s. The warm spot 56 down in Ironton, all under mainly cloudy skies. Here's a look at our surface map tomorrow. That cold front moves off to the east. Another low pressure developing down here in the southern states, but that really won't affect us as we go throughout the weekend and over the next couple of days. 67 will only be the high tomorrow. It's going to be gorgeous, albeit a little breezy and mostly cloudy. Winds will be out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Across the area, temperatures in the middle and upper 60s. Just gorgeous, just not a lot of sunshine as you're out and about tomorrow, but a great day to go out and about. High pressure dominates over the East Coast as we continue through Saturday. Another warm front stretched across the plain states will move on through and warm us up slightly for Sunday, but the overall pattern is going to shift. Subtropical troughing is expected for a few weeks and even a couple of months, actually. Here's that subtropical trough. Cooler air up to the north, warmer air down to the south. Cooler air is going to come on down from the north. And look at this. We're finally below average for the first time in a month. We warm you back above average Saturday and Sunday with highs in the upper 70s and lower 80s. 10-day air masses. Here's our temperatures right now. It's still very warm. As we go throughout the next couple of days, we're going to cool you down. There's a big low pressure up in the northern portions of the continent. We warm you back up on Sunday before cooling you down, and it's going to be a very cold one for next weekend. Extended forecast, 76 will be the warmest temperature in this extended forecast. 73 will be the high on Sunday with an 80% chance of rain and cooling you off into the 60s for next week. So Anna, it looks to be a beautiful week over the next couple of weeks.
Definitely nice. We're going from record highs to record lows, right?
Just below average temperatures.
Just below
now.
average.
Yeah.
That's nice. Finally getting into that fall weather.
Yes.
Thanks, Nicholas. And college aid season is finally underway. The free application for federal student aid, also known as FAFSA, is now available. And education officials say fill it out as soon as possible because some awards are first come, first served. Whitney Wild has a closer look at some tips for both students and parents.
It's that time of year again. College aid season opened October 1st, and education officials say fill out your application as soon as possible. Even if your family might not qualify for need-based aid, sometimes schools have different merit-based scholarships. And schools use the federal form to determine most aid. Another reason to submit the form ASAP, 13 states award financial aid on a first-come, first-served basis. So if you're in one of these states, then get that form online or fill it out on the app My Student Aid. Experts say there are simpler ways to get this done, like the free website called Frank, which has streamlined the process. Current and prospective college students have until the end of June to submit their FAFSA, but deadlines vary depending on your state and college. Experts recommend you do your research to make sure you submit the FAFSA on time. Experts say the biggest challenge when filling out the FAFSA is the number of questions. There are 100 of them. But remember, it's all for free cash for college. For today's Consumer Watch, I'm Whitney Wild.
And researchers may have a lead into why vaping is leading to health issues. Research released yesterday says chemicals in vape liquid may cause lung damage. According to the Mayo Clinic, the lung damage looked like chemical burns. Those involved investigated lung tissue in 17 people who had vaped, and most of those sampled used cannabis oils or marijuana. A pathologist involved in the study says more investigation into the matter is still needed, but the research was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. And an 11th person in the U.S. has died from Eastern equine encephalitis, also known as triple E. EEE is a rare virus transmitted by mosquitoes. The CDC says there are usually 5 to 10 human cases reported in the U.S. annually, but this year there's been an uptick in the number of reported cases. There have been at least 32 confirmed cases in 6 states. The most recent death from EEE happened yesterday in Michigan. It's the 4th death in the state. And now over to Joe with sports.
Hello there, I'm Joe Collins. The Ohio volleyball team starts their weekend a little earlier than usual with an early Thursday trip up to Kent State. The Bobcats are coming off a weekend where they hosted the top 2 teams in the MAC East, but know they cannot be taking this road trip lightly.
We've all talked about it like multiple times. The MAC is crazy and anybody can win at any time, so even though it's not, Miami, Bowling Green and us in the same weekend, it's still pretty big wins for anybody whenever you get a good MAC win.
You can watch the Ohio volleyball team tonight at 7 p.m. on ESPN3 as the Bobcats are taking on Kent State. After dropping 3 straight out-of-conference games, the Ohio football team is looking to bounce back against Buffalo when MAC play begins. After beating Buffalo 52-17 last season, the Bobcats are hoping to have the same success this weekend. The Bobcats need to be wary of Buffalo's strong ground game and use the bye week to get the offense back on track.
Got to be able to tackle these guys. They're good running backs. They look like they came out of the same cookie cutter as the running backs from the last two games. So they run hard, and we've got to be able to tackle these guys.
We kind of went through what Buffalo went through last week at Miami. It was very, very similar. So just as an offense, we gotta keep moving forward. I think we've made some strides. We've got a couple people back in the lineup, as you know. That's going to help. And it's, like I said, it's been a long couple weeks, but we put it to good use with the health of the football team.
Ohio's offense bouncing back could play a huge factor if the Bobcats are going to start MAC play with a win. Now jumping to a team competing at home this weekend, the Ohio soccer team has their first home matches of conference play this weekend. The Bobcats host Toledo on Friday at 4 p.m. at Chesa Field before hosting Bowling Green on Sunday at 1 p.m. The Bowling Green game is especially important because the Falcons are the team that knocked Ohio out of the semifinals of the MAC tournament last season.
We played Toledo on Friday, and for us, we've got to really focus in on Toledo and focus on what we have to do to get a result in the Toledo game. And then obviously with the conference schedule as it is, you play Friday, Sunday, and so obviously we are also preparing for Bowling Green.
Ohio men's basketball also started official practice less than 2 weeks ago. The Bobcats have a very young team with only 3 upperclassmen on the entire roster. Preseason practice is key for the Bobcats, who only return a couple players who made key contributions from last season's squad that went 14-17.
This has been really good, really good. Early signs of togetherness. Guys are coming in early, as you can see, pre-practice, playing together, playing hard, competing at a high level. And every day we're getting better. I think today is practice 6, and we're way better from practice 1. And I think that's the thing, we want to get better every day.
Getting better every day is the goal for new head coach Jeff Bowles and the Bobcats. And Anna, back over to you.
Thanks, Joe. And now over to Nicholas for a look at our final weather. I apologize, we're having some technical difficulties. And that does it for our broadcast this evening. Thanks for watching. I'm Anna Azalian. Have a great evening. Stay tuned for the PBS NewsHour coming up next. And remember, you can find the latest news anytime at WOUB.org. Have a great night.
Three carefree brothers drop everything to tend to their aging grandmother.
¿Cómo puedes decir que no hay conciencia?
Párate, América, párate, por favor.
Discover the joy and sacrifice of being there till the end. America on POV.
Good evening, I'm Judy Woodruff. On the NewsHour tonight, President Trump publicly urges China and Ukraine to investigate the Bidens, doubling down on actions at the heart of the impeachment inquiry. Then a return to Flint. 5 years after lead contamination in the water supply made headlines. What has changed and what has not?
We need to get the help that we deserve so we can have a full recovery. And for some, that full recovery, we don't know if it will come. If you've lost a loved one, if you have a child that's been damaged, you're going to deal with that for the rest of your life.
Plus, an expanding canvas. As China grows wealthier, so does the desire to collect art, reinvigorating China's art market.
People have loved to collect art since the olden days. Whether it was royal collections or private collections, China was a country which favored art, but we had a break in our history. We are restoring it. There's respect for art and culture.
All that and more on tonight's PBS NewsHour.
Major funding for the PBS NewsHour has been provided by BNSF Railway, Consumer Cellular,
and by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, supporting science, technology, and improved economic performance and financial literacy in the 21st century.
Carnegie Corporation of New York, supporting innovations in education, democratic engagement, and the advancement of international peace and security at carnegie.org. And with the ongoing support of these individuals and institutions. This program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
President Trump is already under fire for alleged abuse of power, and now he faces a new firestorm of his own making. It erupted today in front of White House reporters and TV cameras. White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor begins our coverage.
First Ukraine, now China. On the White House lawn, President Trump set off a whole new controversy with these words.
China should start an investigation into the Bidens, because what happened in China is just about as bad as what happened with Ukraine.
Without evidence, the president renewed his claim that China let Hunter Biden open a major equity fund in 2013 in return for a sweetheart deal on trade with the Obama administration.
You know what they call that? They call that a payoff.
President Trump said he has not requested China pursue an investigation into former Vice President Joe Biden and his son. But moments earlier, he said he believes he has the upper hand in trade negotiations that resume next week.
I have a lot of options on China, but if they don't do what we want, we have tremendous power.
The comments sparked new outrage from top Democrats, including Adam Schiff, chairman of the House Intelligence Committee.
The President of the United States encouraging a foreign nation to interfere again to help his campaign by investigating Iraq is a fundamental breach of the President's oath of office.
A spokesman for Vice President Biden's presidential campaign called President Trump's statements a grotesque choice of lies. She also accused him of desperately clutching for conspiracy theories. Last night in Reno, Nevada, Joe Biden fired off his strongest denunciation yet of President Trump.
Like every bully in history, he's afraid. He's afraid of just how badly he may be beaten in November. I'm not going anywhere. You're not going to destroy me, and you're not going to destroy my family.
But today in Scottsdale, Arizona, Vice President Mike Pence reinforced President Trump's calls for a probe into the Bidens.
I think the American people have a right to know if the Vice President of the United States or his family profited from his position as Vice President during the last administration.
Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, a first appearance from a key witness in the impeachment inquiry. Former envoy to Ukraine, Kurt Volker, was interviewed behind closed doors by members of 3 House committees. He resigned last Friday after the release of a whistleblower's complaint. It accused President Trump of pressuring Ukraine's president to investigate the Bidens. It is now the focus of the impeachment investigation. The complaint says Volker provided advice to the Ukrainian leadership about how to navigate President Trump's demands. It also says he met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and other Ukrainian political figures in Kiev a day after the July phone call. Volker is one of 5 current or former State Department officials that Democrats want to hear from. But Republicans said his appearance today did not advance the Democrats' impeachment agenda.
Not one thing he has said comports with any of the Democrats' impeachment narrative. Not one thing.
Congressman Jim Jordan, ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, also accused Democrats of unfair investigation procedures. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy raised the same concerns in a letter to Speaker Nancy Pelosi. He called for a suspension of impeachment proceedings until the full House votes on ordering an impeachment inquiry. Pelosi responded with a letter of her own. She said the Constitution does not require a House vote before proceeding with an impeachment inquiry. Tomorrow, the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community, Michael Atkinson, is scheduled to go behind closed doors with the House Intelligence Committee to discuss the whistleblower's complaint.
For more on all this, I'm joined by NewsHour's White House correspondent, Yamiche Alcindor, and by Washington Post investigative reporter, Michael Cranish. He also joins us from the Post. Thanks to you both. Yamiche, I'm going to start with you. Now that out in the open, the president is asking for China as well as Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden, his son, Hunter Biden. You've been talking to people inside and outside the administration. What are they saying are the implications of all this?
Well, the president was really doubling down on this idea that he thinks it's ethical and within his right to have a foreign leader investigate a political rival. The White House is defending his claims. Vice President Mike Pence was also out defending the president. And the president essentially saying, look, I'm not going to face any consequences for this because I believe that this is the right thing to do. I believe that investigating Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden is essentially in the best interests of the United States. Of course, there are political opponents of the president who say that's not exactly what the president should be doing. Instead, they assume that the president and say that the president is really trying to normalize this idea that foreign leaders should be helping him in his political pursuits. And they say that that would be illegal. It's also important to note that the head of the Federal Elections Commission tweeted today. She said it's still illegal for a U.S. national to solicit information or to get any sort of help for a U.S. election from a foreign national. So as the president is saying, this is within my right, we have at least federal officials saying that's actually not true and this is not the way that things should be done.
And Michael Cranish, when it comes to Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, you've been reporting for a long time and looking for a long time into Hunter Biden's activities in China. We've heard what the president is alleging. What is at the source of this? How much of it do we know to be true?
Well, President Trump has alleged that Hunter Biden, the vice president's son, walked away with $1.5 billion for an investment fund. The evidence of that is not there. What happened was on December 4th of 2013, Hunter Biden did go on Air Force Two with his father, Joe Biden, who was vice president. Joe Biden met with the leader of China, Xi Jinping, and for about 5 hours. And during this 2-day trip, Joe Biden was introduced by his son Hunter to a gentleman who was involved with an investment matter that Hunter Biden was involved with. Hunter Biden did become a member unpaid of a advisory group that was advising an investment group that wanted to raise $1.5 billion. To this day, Hunter Biden's lawyer has said that Hunter Biden actually hasn't made any money from an investment that actually took effect in 2017. Hunter Biden today owns about 10% of a company that is being involved here, and the lawyer has said that no money's been made. Hunter Biden has declined repeatedly to talk to us. There are still questions about why he joined this board, what exactly he did, why he did this basically in the wake of the trip with his father to Beijing. So there are some appearance issues there. I think folks on all sides might say, why would he do this and potentially put his father up for questioning later, just as Hunter Biden joined the board of a gas company in Ukraine at a time when his father was shepherding U.S. policy in that country and actually talking about gas policy. So There is a pattern here that's caused some issues, even for members of the vice president's staff. Former staffers who I talked to said they were concerned, but they didn't feel any laws were broken, and so they let the matter pass. But they were concerned about appearance.
And just quickly, Michael Kranish, you've also reported that the president has tried at times to get the financier Steven Schwartzman involved in these allegations around China. Remind us who Steve Schwartzman is and what it was the president was asking him to do.
Well, President Trump said last week at a meeting with the U.S. mission at the UN, in remarks that later were obtained by the Post in a video, he said that he talked to Steve Schwartzman, the head of Blackstone, one of the world's largest investment companies based here in the U.S. He talked to him about Hunter Biden. Steve Schwartzman wrote in a recent book that he had spent a lot of time helping the administration on the trade talks. He made 8 trips in 2018 alone. He wrote, quote, on behalf, unquote, of the administration in their efforts to deal with trade matters in China. So Schwartzman, I wrote a story about Schwartzman last year where I referred to him as Trump's China whisperer. He's very influential on China policy, is probably the U.S. business person closest to the Chinese leadership. So for Trump to say this was significant. However, Schwartzman's spokesman said this didn't happen. Mr. Schwartzman never talked to Trump about Hunter Biden. So they too disagree on whether this conversation even took place.
Fascinating. And finally, Yamiche, we know that the former envoy to Ukraine, Kurt Volker, was on the Hill today having private briefings with House members. What have we learned about what Mr. Volker had to say?
According to a number of different sources and a number of different reports, Kurt Volker was eager to share information with lawmakers and staff today. He said a number of things, including that he was not personally involved with President Trump trying to pressure Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden. He also said that he tried to warn Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal attorney, against using any information coming from Ukraine. He said none of that is trustworthy and you shouldn't be using that. He also said that it was unusual for Ukraine's military aid to be held up, even though it was eventually released. So it's really important to really follow and really look at whether or not Kurt Volker's statements are going to gel with what Democrats are looking for, and whether or not this is how that's going to impact the impeachment inquiry. I also think it's important to note, as I was saying in the first answer about President Trump talking about China, next week we're going to have Chinese negotiators meeting with the U.S. and the president is essentially saying, look, I'm going to use the military might and the economic might, rather, of the U.S. to pressure China possibly to looking into Joe Biden. So what you have is Kurt Volker basically saying, I was not a part of any of that, and you have the president saying, look, I'm actually looking at a new country to find more information about Joe Biden.
So many strands to follow today and now and every day, virtually. Yamiche Alcindor, Michael Kranish, thank you both.
Thanks.
In the day's other news, security forces in Iraq shot and killed at least 12 more protesters, raising the death toll there to 33 over 3 days. The government also cut off internet access in a bid to calm things down. Still, crowds in Baghdad defied a curfew, and troops opened fire with live rounds and tear gas. But the protesters insisted they would not be cowed.
Even with the curfew, I swear to God, we will not retreat. We are demanding our simplest rights. It is the simplest rights that we ask for. I view this gas canister as if it had been given to me by a lady. We sacrifice ourselves for our country.
The protests have spread to southern Iraq, where at least 10 people were killed overnight. Demonstrators are demanding jobs, better services, and an end to corruption. A Hong Kong teenager who was shot by police on Tuesday is now charged with rioting and attacking officers. He's the first person wounded by police gunfire in months of pro-democracy protests. New rallies tonight demanded accountability for the shooting. Police fired tear gas and pepper spray to disperse the crowd. In Paris, at least 4 people were stabbed to death today at the city's police headquarters by a civilian co-worker. The assailant was finally shot and killed by an officer. France's interior minister said the man had worked in computer support since 2003 with no apparent problems.
This man was known inside the computer department. He worked alongside his colleagues and never presented any behavioral difficulties, never any warning signs. And this morning, he went on a deadly rampage.
The attack came one day after thousands of Paris police staged a protest over working conditions and an increase in officer suicides. The European Union's top court ruled today that Facebook must remove or block unlawful content worldwide if EU courts order it. The case had begun with an Austrian politician who sued to remove a news item that she considered libelous and insulting. Facebook and industry groups warn that today's decision raises critical questions about freedom of expression. Back in this country, MGM Resorts will pay up to $800 million to families of the 58 who were killed and hundreds hurt in the Las Vegas mass shooting of 2017. The gunman opened fire from his room in the MGM Hotel on an outdoor music festival. It was the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history. Today's settlement resolves hundreds of lawsuits. The number of people with severe lung conditions linked to vaping passed the 1,000 mark today with 18 deaths. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported a total of 1,080 confirmed and probable cases since March in 48 states. Officials have not yet identified a definitive cause for the lung injuries. More than 45 million people across 14 southern states of the U.S. are now suffering through a so-called flash drought. Government and university researchers reported today that the dry conditions came on suddenly and worsened throughout September. The drought has parched farmland, dried up ponds, and increased the danger of wildfires. On Wall Street, stocks bounced back from 2 days of losses. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 122 points to close at 26,201. The Nasdaq rose 87 points, and the S&P 500 added 23. Still to come on the NewsHour, did President Trump violate his oath of office before TV cameras today? On the ground in Flint, Michigan, where residents still grapple with the water crisis 5 years on, and much more. Returning now to our main story, the president urging another foreign power, China, to start an investigation into a potential political rival. What are the implications of this as a matter of law and national security? Michael Mukasey was the U.S. Attorney General under former President George W. Bush. And Kerry Cordero served in both Republican and Democratic administrations in national security roles at the U.S. Justice Department and at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Welcome to you both. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to start with you, Attorney General Mukasey. Let me just ask first, before we get to oath of office, and ask about the law. Is what President Trump is doing in asking another country to investigate a potential political rival, does that break a law?
No. I think the Justice Department has already opined on this in the context of the request, if such it be seen, to the Ukraine to investigate Biden as to whether that was a solicitation of a thing of value. I think they said it's not. Presidents have been conducting foreign relations. Presidents running for re-election, hoping for re-election, have been conducting foreign relations for as long as the country's been around, in the hope of getting re-elected. If you take a hypothetical, it's got nothing to do with this case. If a president running for re-election asks a foreign power to finance the construction of a hospital in a state where his numbers were not very good, that would not be a thing of value. It would benefit the state. As to whether it would be politically wise or not, that's something else again. But I think the principle is essentially the same.
Kerry Cordero, is this in any regard a violation of law, what the president has done?
Well, I think what former Attorney General Mukasey is getting at with respect to a thing of value has to do with whether or not we're applying the specific statutory provisions, perhaps, of campaign finance law. But the situation that the country is in right now with President Trump's activities as revealed by the conversation that he had with the Ukrainian president and then even his public statements today goes far beyond technical violations of specific statutory provisions. And instead, the problem has to do with whether or not he is in violation of the Constitution and of constitutional principles of whether or not he is fulfilling his oath of office, whether or not he is abusing his constitutional authorities to conduct foreign affairs by using that access to foreign leaders to basically work in his own personal interests. And so the fundamental question is the president, when he's conducting foreign affairs, acting in the United States' interests, or is he using that position to work in the benefit of his own personal political ambitions? And that's not an appropriate use of his authority.
Michael Mukasey, what about that?
That, it seems to me, is up to the voters. And if they think he's using his authority in a way that hurts the country, they can express that at the polls. You don't simply take a difference of opinion with what somebody's doing in office and use it as a basis to remove him. Now, that said, this is obviously a political process. The standards are political, and the House is not barred from considering his statement today or his statement during that conversation, if they choose to do so, as a basis for impeachment. But that doesn't mean that it is properly so considered.
Well, let me just quickly follow up on that. I mean, because what I hear Carrie Cordero saying is that it is not in the interest of the United States of America for President Trump to be asking a foreign leader